After less than 1 year in early access, Memoriapolis just released its full version on the 30th of April 2025. So today, I'm showing you my top 10 tips to make sure that you can start right, because the game is now a lot harder. First, before you even start the game, you're going to have a choice to make. What is your destiny? To say it differently is, what is the starting bonus you want to have? Now, it is worth noting that every time you will move through the edges, and there are 5 edges, you will be able to choose a second bonus. But the first one is definitely critical. You have 6 different choices. I'll show them to you very quickly. The first one is natural resources are 25% more abundant. Second, when a trade route is in cooldown, its passive income is increased by 200%. Incidents are 20% less likely to occur. The decree number is increased by 2, and their cost is reduced. Philosopher, the cultural buildings offer 15% more satisfaction. And last but not least, the priests, where the population regularly makes offering of random resources. In my opinion, you're gonna want to stay away from the politician, because the number of decree, you're not gonna get access to the number of decree right away. It's gonna take time. That feels something that is a lot better to get later on. Similarly, for the trader, it may take you quite a bit of time to get, access to the trader. Plus, money is not really the problem in the beginning of the game. And similarly, the strategist, the incidents, they don't occur that much at the beginning. Plus, there is also a way to avoid, to also reduce it without this. So in my opinion, the other 3 are a lot better. Craftsman to get more, resources. The philosopher to get more satisfaction, and the priest to get a bit more of random resources. The only thing I don't like about the priest, to be honest, is it's random. So I don't control it. I don't know what's coming. So that is what I don't like. But you may want to go with it. I do really like the other 2. To be honest, I think they are as strong. It's basically, if you get this one, that your resource will be definitely a bit better. Also because you get 1 cultural point from that culture, which boosts your resource production. And so, you get a lot of resource, and maybe you'll focus a bit more on satisfaction. Versus with the philosopher, you get a bit more satisfaction, so you'll have to focus a bit more on resource. But definitely choose one of those 2 in my opinion. Then again, basically before you even start, you're gonna have to make the choice on your starting location. So let me give you some tips there. You have 2 locations that are recommended because they're a bit easier. And honestly, I do think this one over here is the best one. Let me show you. When you press 6, you will be able to see the resources. In this vicinity, you already have so much resource. But at the same time, you also have space for your city to expand, right? There's a lot of open space here and there, and even in the future over here for the city to expand. And then, you can also quickly go into a second city on this side, maybe for the second age. Versus for some of the others, it becomes a lot harder. Either you have a lot of space, but maybe less resources, or you have a lot of resources, but not a lot of space. So I do think this one is the best one. I personally suggest you start somewhere over here. This will give you access, if you put it, for example, somewhere over here, you will have access directly to stone over here. You will have access to a lot of stone, plus a good place potentially for all of your farms here. If you put just 1 surveyor, right? Surveyor cabin. Similarly, if you put a surveyor cabin just here, you'll have access to all of these resources. So for me, this is a perfect location. But to recap, you need to select a location where you definitely have some wood and some stone that are either already in the circle or are not that far from the circle. And you'll use a surveyor cabin to get to them. But you will also need pretty quickly sand and clay. So the sand, this color over here, and the clay, this color there. It is totally fine, in my opinion, if there is no gold and iron anywhere close. Tip number 3, let's talk about city layout. Your population will build districts where your attractiveness is high. Attractiveness high is this blue, right? Which at the beginning will definitely be around your city center. Your city center will be the only thing providing, a lot of attractiveness at the start. And then you're going to have things like your cultural buildings, that you can see all over here, and services and wonders even in the future. These are things that are going to create attractiveness, and therefore, you want to be smart about how you position them. As you saw, in this one, for example, they are a bit in a circle around this city center. Therefore, I have very good attractiveness here. This is where we're creating. And then you're going to have a second concentric circle, and then the third, etc. On the other hand, your productions, you want to put them as far as possible. So for example, the first production I had to put was over here, over there, over here, and over here. Now the city is slowly but surely starting to grow close to them, right? You can't avoid this. But then as the city goes closer, we're going to put more and more of the production further and further apart. You want to avoid them clashing with each other. And so as much as possible, you will try to put all of those productions on the outside of the security center, right, radius, and not towards the middle. You will also have to build surveyor cabins to extend this and go, to places where especially you want access to certain resources. Like here, you can see I have a lot of resources, or there, I put one, and this is one of them here, right? Or even for your farms, right? The farms, they take a lot of space, and so you don't want to make those farms anywhere close to your starting location, or there will be no space for your city to expand. And then lastly, try to separate your city into quadrants for each of the cultures. So each of the buildings, cultural buildings, services, etc., they will all be aligned to a certain faction, to a certain culture, right? This is what you can see over here. This is the green one, the red one, etc. Try to separate them. So basically try to separate them, right? Where here I'm putting the red ones, then we have the green ones, then we have the dark blue, the light blue. In a small city like this one, obviously, it will be impossible to make them perfectly separated, but you do need to try to make them as separate as possible so that they can expand, but they are not going to fight with each other. Tip number 4, what is my building order? First of all, do not make food. You have 500 of food and your consumption is basically 0 because you have basically 0 people right now. So you have time for food. You don't need to start with food. It does cost on top of it more than the others because the others are 10 only. This one is 20. So start with 2 canty camps and 2 small quarries. Now, when I say 2, start with 1, then put a second. But that's the first building I suggest. Obviously, you're gonna want to find a place where there is quite a bit. So if you look over here, not that much. Here, there is a bit more. So we're probably going to put the wood there first. Let's go. Then we're gonna do the same for the quarry, pressing 6, finding that there's quite a lot over here, or potentially a bit here. No, not that much, right? So we're gonna start, okay, put it there. You can rotate, by the way, to try to get as much as possible. Here it is. So we put the first one, right? 2 first production. Now we don't have enough workers right now, so we need to unpause. As soon as you get enough workers, then you can get for 1 more of each. Right? And then this is only at that point that you may want to put a small farm after you've built 2 of these. In this case over here, I probably suggest what you do is you actually will place a surveyor cabin probably somewhere around here so that you get access to more stone here, more wood there, and you have also some space. So look at this. We're gonna get access to a lot of stone. We get access to a lot of wood, but we also get access to a space that is far away from the initial city for us to put the farm. All right. So that's kind of the building order I suggest. Again, we can put a second one over here, or potentially a second one. You can put it there, and same next for the quarry. Accelerating the time a bit right now, just so I can show it to you. As soon as we get 8, we can decide if we put the quarry there or if we put it again over here. It doesn't really matter at that point. You will probably have to build the third one soon enough, but you can see that here we are at 4,000, so that's pretty good. You'll have again probably to rotate and try to find the right space. And later on, as I said, the farm, you're gonna put it over here. Once you've done this, your goal should be to get this done as soon as possible. So even if you have enough resource and workers to build, more production after that, you will want to keep them so that you can improve. As soon as you get to 90 people, basically, you should have enough reserves of wood and stone so that you can improve to level 2, because level 2 will give you access to really important things. It will give you access to the sand, to the clay. It will give you access also, here it is. So let me show you. It will also give you access to the blueprint maker, which should definitely be the next building you build. Because yes, you start with quite a bit of blueprints, but blueprint is the most important resource in the whole game. So as soon as you can get some, you definitely want to get it. So here it is. It costs also 0 to unlock. So unlock it as soon as you can and then make it. Now, there is some people that say it's great to put it close to your city because it does give you a bit of attractiveness. I don't remember exactly how much. And check it over here, 50. But 50 is not that much. And honestly, for me, it takes space for nothing. So I actually put it usually pretty far, like over here. Then after this, as I said, we have now unlocked in the sand and the clay. So you can start finding out where. So in this case, sand, there's tons of sand there. That's super easy. For the clay, we will probably have to put another surveyor cabin, let's say somewhere over here, all right? And that will give us access to the clay, all right? Because the clay is gonna be somewhere over there. And then this is when you start unlocking cultural buildings. I will detail that in tip 6. Before we have tip 5, that I do want to mention, it's quite important, is we are limited in time. Not in terms of actual second in the real world, but in terms of cycles. The Antiquity, for example, is 1,200 cycles. When you get to 1,200, you will be forced to move to the next age. And in total, it's 9,600 cycles. But you can, and you definitely should, pause the game when you don't know what is your next building to build. When you're, thinking, pause the game. Don't let it run and get out of hand, because any cycle that you lose where you could have been building something, like you have workers, you have resources, and you don't, this is basically money you're leaving on the table. Tip number 6, let's talk about cultural buildings, because they're critical both for factions and critical also for your satisfaction. You're gonna want to get your satisfaction as high as possible, because when you do, you get bonuses. For example, reduce your food consumption, or reducing the occurrence of accidents, or increasing the production of resources, increasing taxes, and decreasing the time to construction. You will also get the bigger bonuses, the bigger, your satisfaction. So for example, if my safety here was 150 instead of 110 like it is right now, the reduce the occurrence of incidents would be minus 100%, versus now it's minus 15%. And inversely, if my safety is very low, let's say my safety is 0, then instead of reducing the occurrence, we're gonna increase the occurrence. So definitely having high safety is important. And how do you get high safety? By doing cultural buildings. If we look at this one over here, for example, the arena, this is going to give me 157 of safety and 68 of whatever I want. I can choose one of the other one and I'll get 68. Of course, this will come at a cost, right? Both of resource and people. So for cultural buildings, what I suggest is don't go crazy. Try to be focused. I suggest you focus, first of all, on the factions that are going to unlock these buildings over here, these services. And even inside these, I think we should be even more focused. My suggestion is you should start with the green one, the Aureum, because it will give you a lot of stocks, which at the beginning is very limited. And then second with the Mycelium, which will enable you to trade. So that means, we're going to try to unlock those two by getting the Ceramic Workshop and the Via Aedificum. Then we're gonna build these ones, right? And as I said before, try to don't build them together to create quarters in your city. Later, you may want to have all of the factions so that you get more money, but honestly, it gets harder and harder. So try to focus on the right ones. Tip number 7, you will discover ruins like this one over here. You can also see it at the bottom. And those ruins you can either demolish or repair. At the beginning of the game, I suggest you always demolish them. They will give you a lot of resource, including some that you may not even have yet. Like I don't have any sand right now and it's giving me 100 of sand. And also money, which is pretty hard to get at the beginning. The only problem is that when you demolish them, you will lose trust of factions. But right now I don't even have factions. So it is a no-brainer to do it right now and delete it. And even if I add factions, you can get their trust back up by stopping the taxes, because at the beginning, the taxes are super small anyway. Tip number 8, as I said, satisfaction is really critical, but it will be impossible to have all of them in the green, except maybe, if you're really good or at the beginning. So where do you focus? Well, in my opinion, the most important one is belonging. Increasing your production, right? This is gonna be a key point at the beginning. Then I also do think you want to probably get your health. Reducing the food consumption, it can be really helpful to not have to build a second farm too early. And then third, the safety. You don't want to have accidents, so reducing safety is really great. On the other hand, esteem is not important at all at the beginning. You don't have faction, you're not getting taxes, and even when you start getting factions, they'll give you very little of gold. So esteem is not important. And also creativity at the beginning is not that important. Tip number 9, contrary to most games out there, upgrades are actually not always a good idea. So don't rush to unlock them and build all of those upgrades. Let's talk about a couple of particular ones. The first one is the architectural office upgrades. These ones definitely actually make sense. You will increase the blueprint production, from 17 to 20 to 23 to 28. Now, of course, that's going to cost you more, like the basic one only costs 25, level 2 costs you 275, plus additional resources, level 3 even more, 600, and level 4, 1000. So they cost way more, but you can only build one architectural office, and blueprints are a bit kind of like the limiting factor of your growth sometimes. So upgrading this one, you have to do it. The only thing I would mention is, there's no point in unlocking it now right away, even if you can, on day one, you can do it, but you won't have those wooden beams or those cut stones. So it doesn't make sense to do it right away. But as soon as you have those resources, then I suggest you do it. Second, let's talk about the farms, because here it's also one of these where it sort of makes sense at some point. If you look at the small farm over here, it has 8 fields, and each field is producing 7 food per cycle. Now, if you move into the second one, this is gonna be 10 fields, and it's gonna produce 14 food per cycle. This is basically doubling the production per cycle, plus it is adding 2 more fields. There is also a bit of change on stock. The level 1 stock is 500 versus the second one is 900. There is a lot of bonuses for sure. But that comes at the cost, right? Like if we look over here, this is just 10 wood and 10 stone and only 6 people to maintain it, versus this one will be, 210 wood, 160 stone, 100 clay, and 15 people to maintain it. So it is better to actually build a second small farm level 1 before you think about upgrading to level 2. But why would you want to upgrade? Because if you think about the space that a farm is taking, at some point space is going to become a limiting factor. So when space is becoming a limiting factor, that is when you should start upgrading your farms, because yes, it will use more resources, it will use more people per food produced, but it will then use less space. Then let's talk about the small query, because that's an interesting one. For the small query, similar to the small farm, yes, you increase your production, you go from 4 to 6 to 9, etc. But that is not what is important. What is important is the radius. A level 1 will take a radius of 150, while a level 2 will take 175, 200, 225, etc. all the way to, I don't remember, but a lot, like let's say 400 meters. And that becomes important because if you look at, most of the mountains, there is a lot of stone, but it's inside the mountain and you can't get there unless your radius increases. But of course, this will come at a cost, right? Again, if we look over here, this is only 10 wood. This is 8 people versus a level 2 is going to be 12 people or just a small increase, right? And then we're going to call 25 people and then 40 people, right? So the increase in people is not worth it. Like you would rather just build a second one of these rather than build a new one because it's going to cost you much more. But at some point you won't have a choice because all of the stone will be unattainable. So at that point it starts making sense basically to also upgrade your stone. And then last, for production, let's talk about things like the stonemason, brickworks, etc. They're all the same, those advanced ones, which will transform a basic resource like stone into a more advanced one, the cut stone. What is really good with those improvements there, it's not so much that, level 1 is making 4 cut stone and level 2 is making 5, is that the efficiency is better. Instead of transforming, 21 into 4, you're going to transform 24 into 5. So basically to make 1 cut stone, you're using less stone and therefore you need to also get less stone, right? So this is where the improvement comes. But obviously, again, that comes at a cost. Level 1 is 70 wood and 30 stone and only 8 people. Level 2 is already 70 wood, 142 stone and 150 clay and 15 wooden beams. And on top of this, you're talking about 12 people to maintain it. So the production per people and the production per cost is not worth it, but because your efficiency is better, kind of on the long run, this will be better. So at some point you will want to start upgrading these, but again, this is not right away. It doesn't make sense right away. And then last but not least, the cultural buildings. These ones basically never make sense. If you look at it, the cost of the first level is always pretty small, like around 400 total resources, 17 people, and you're gonna get a bit more than 200 of satisfaction. Most of the level 2, you're gonna get just a bit more of satisfaction, like from 225 to 250 basically, but the cost is a lot more. It is always more. You'll see over here, this is way more, 22 people. And again here, this is more, 22 people. So it never makes sense. Like here, you can see the cost is lower. The only thing is that when I build the first arena, I'm gonna choose, okay, I want some safety and I'm gonna choose a steam, for example. Then if I want to build something that will give me something else, that is when I may need to upgrade to something else. And then last but not least, you do have a regrade codex over here that gives you detail on pretty much everything in the game. And so I do suggest that if you have a question, first check there. Plus at the same time, remember that if you press tab, you have those overlays, not just for attractiveness, but also for all of the resource, right? You can see all of the resource. We can see the districts, we can see the factions. And last but not least, if you have many incidents across your city, you can find out where they are. So here it is, my top 10 tips to help you really start strong in this game that is not so easy anymore. And if you want to see more, check out my Let's Play. We're gonna go from start to finish, applying those tips and many more. Thank you for watching, smash like button, and I hope to see you next time.